Hello. Technically on Pottermore, as of 2012, I am a Slytherin, so I wasn't sure whether or not to wear this. We'll see. As a child, of course, I resonated with Gryffindor, but I think, yeah, I'm a Slytherin. Trying to get some more grey in the scarf. There we go. Oh gosh, too many jump cuts. Right, hello. As you can see by the title, today I'm going to be talking about Fantastic Beasts and where to find them. And yeah, I'm aware it's January. The majority of my friends and stuff saw the film in November, so I'm several months late. But still, for me, this is new. This is my immediate reaction, even though I'm very late. Before I get into this vlog, just a bit of backstory about how I relate to Harry Potter. So I've loved Harry Potter since I was about 7, 8 years old. Hello, younger me. And when I was 7 years old, I did get copies of these. They're currently in my garage. I can't get at them. These are the copies I've had since 2011. The originals weren't hardback. I got those in America somewhere, and they came in that. But yeah, I just wanted to stress I am a major Harry Potter fan. Love it. For those of you who don't know, Fantastic Beasts is set in the same wizarding world as Harry Potter, only 60 or 70 years before Harry Potter is even born. As for Fantastic Beasts, for the last 2 years or so, I've tried to avoid everything possible to do with Fantastic Beasts, because for me, I think trailers tend to spoil an awful lot nowadays, and I just wanted to go to the cinema and be surprised for once. So prior going into the film, I knew almost nothing. And I didn't mind that. But let's get into how I really felt about it. So when I came out of it, I wasn't ecstatic, I wasn't disappointed, I was kind of in the middle. Yeah, deep breath in and out. I wonder how many people I've offended with that. I am a tough critic to please. I know I am. One of the major things for me that sort of distracted me from the film was it felt as though I was watching a very elongated episode of Doctor Who, set to New York, and New York's commander was the Doctor and he had all his companions. Yeah. Newt travelled to a new world that was already brewing with trouble, brought more trouble into the equation, caused absolute chaos, and then of course saved the day. He just didn't have a TARDIS, he travelled on a ship. Although there was a few twists, the final part of the ending sequence, I know my hands are everywhere in this, I'm sorry, I'm a bit passionate, it did feel a bit predictable in places. The perceived villain goes on a massive rampage, destroys the world, and Newt has to try and calm him down, be the voice of reason and protect them. And once that solution was finished, it was just a case of fixing the entire world and erasing the memories of everybody so that public life could continue without interfering with the real history timeline that we have. Hello, Puss Puss. She just jumped on my lap as I said that. It's Doctor Who. It's crystal clear. In my head, it's crystal clear. Sending something into the sky exploding, the whole world being covered in a type of rain that erases memories, again reminded me of the 12th episode in the 8th series of Doctor Who, where Missy or the Master sends Cybermen into the sky, they explode, they pollinate the earth, and then Cybermen rise out of the ground from dead bodies in cemeteries. Basically the whole concept of something falling from the sky and converting people, again, Doctor Who. As soon as the bird went into the sky, I could see what was going to happen, and I was a bit... I mean, it was nice, but the fact that I feel like it's sort of already been done before, yeah. But let's go back to the beginning of the movie. I'm kind of getting ahead of myself. First of all, I was really happy to see the opening sequence with Hedwig's theme in the same style of the original Harry Potter's. So that hit me with nostalgia. Of course it changed quite fast, but that initial few seconds, so important. I felt like I was 7 years old in the cinema. Again, it's great. So there was this big opening sequence and you saw the back of Grindelwald's head. There he is, blonde guy, shaved sides, a bit like me in a way. And that was really good, you know, suspense and stuff. But as soon as we saw Graves, I immediately put the two together, like straight away. If you're going to pretend to be someone else or create a completely different person to hide your identity, don't have the same haircut. So quite early on I feel like the surprise had been spoilt for me. It would have made so much more sense to have given Graves a completely different hairstyle. And my theory was proven when Graves gave Crescents, can't say the names, I'm sorry, the Deathly Hallows. Because from Harry Potter we all know that Grindelwald was obsessed with the Deathly Hallows and ended up getting the Elder Wand. So in the end, when Graves was revealed to be Grindelwald, I was like, yes, I knew it. I've known for about an hour and a half. If I wasn't a fan of Harry Potter, I think that revelation would have been really good. A good twist. Darn my Harry Potter fandom. Another element to this film that I was a bit confused about was Queenie. Queenie had mind-reading abilities. So for me, I didn't quite understand how she was able to read Tina's mind from an exceptionally long distance, but couldn't read Graves. Because technically, she would have known then that Graves wasn't Graves, he was Grindelwald. Maybe she can only read certain minds to a certain distance, I don't know, but yeah, there was something there I was a bit like, what? So if anything, in the final sequence, it shouldn't have been Newt revealing Grindelwald as he was. It should have been Queenie, because by that point Queenie is in a very close proximity to Graves, Grindelwald, to be able to know, so Newt as a character I thought was gorgeous, not just because it's Eddie, but he portrayed this very vulnerable, accessible, introverted man, and it's quite different from Harry Potter, the character I mean. Yes, Harry Potter had a very bumpy start to his first 11 years, but he's actually quite confident and has friends and is very engaging, whereas Newt is very subtle. Sometimes too subtle. There were moments where I did struggle to understand what he was saying. I did wish there were subtitles. I'm a big fan of subtitles. I feel as though the film took far too long to explain why Newt was in New York. So for a period of the film, I was frustrated by Newt. I thought he was quite stupid or careless, bringing creatures into a new world that aren't dangerous but can be perceived to be dangerous, and not securing them properly. First impressions can be very important, so the very first impression I had of Newt was that he was sweet but simultaneously stupid. That didn't last, of course. I know, I misjudged him. I truly loved the entire sequence at the bank. My mum and I were laughing out loud in the cinema. For me to laugh out loud is a big thing. But it's one of those sequences that, although it's fantastic, it wasn't necessarily needed for the film. If anything, when Newt and Jacob sort of stumbled into each other outside the bank, that's when the sequence should have been cut. The suitcases should have been changed over there and the film could have continued. It was more for comedy, I suppose. It was still good, but I didn't think it was necessary. There's a few sequences like that, but then again, it's Fantastic Beasts. You've got to have the creatures in the film somewhere. One of my fears about the film was how prominent the creatures would be, because I'm not a fan of nature and animals, insects, etc. So yeah, I was a bit worried, and thankfully the balance of creatures and magic was okay, considering. The film did seem to be telling two separate stories that were starting to collide together. You had the story of Newt and his creatures, and the bad stuff that was happening in the wizarding world in America. Or technically all over the world, but in this story, in America, New York. Part of me does wonder whether J.K. Rowling used this book to create a new franchise. So the first film will prominently show this story and then develop into something else over the next 4 films. This was practically a catalyst. Not that it's a bad catalyst, but this leads you on to something else. But also it's quite clever because fans of Harry Potter will connect to this and therefore continue into the next franchise. Maybe. The next 4 films may focus on other stuff that was hinted during this film. I know there's one theory that's going around that Dumbledore's younger sister, she may be an obscurus, can't say that. There's the whole idea about discrimination, which is very valid in our communities today, like the no magias and magias not being allowed to marry and love one another, or even engage. I'm not sure if any of you guys noticed, but Obscurus is actually the name of the fictional publishing group that published this book. It's fictional, but still, Obscurus. Fantastic Beasts, the film, is actually set in 1926. The book was published in the fictitious world in 1927. And Voldemort himself was born in December of 1926. Some of us are wondering whether or not the sequels of this film will delve into the world of Voldemort's childhood. Maybe. There's so many directions this film could go in, and J.K. Rowling has sort of hinted that there's a deeper story that she's telling with this franchise, so I'm actually very, very happy that the 4 protagonists are the age they are. They're not teenagers or children, they're fully fledged adults. I'm going to quickly go through the characters. Tina, for me, was a really cool character. She evidently had a big backstory as to why she was so nervous and upset, but she barely smiled throughout the film. I hope she gets to smile in the next one. Queenie, I loved Queenie straight away, but she sort of emulated Marilyn Monroe to me, which is the wrong period. I think this is the 20s, not the 40s and 50s. And Jacob as a character, Loved him, really loved him. He wasn't your typical sidekick that was just there for comedic effect. He actually had depth and was relevant to the story. So, focusing for a moment on Grindelwald, it's really difficult because for lots of us, we know his death. We know who kills him and we know when. So regardless of what happens over the next 4 films, we know he won't be defeated. So that's frustrating. Because I was sort of aware that Graves was Grindelwald, very early on, I sort of treated Graves as Grindelwald, not as Graves. So I felt like I could see through him and know him as Grindelwald. So that was quite strange as I was watching it. He's supposed to be one of the most darkest wizards of all time, and there he is in front of me. Right, I'm now going to move on to music. Completely changed topic again. Coming out of this film, I didn't remember much about the music. I had to go onto YouTube and listen to elements of the soundtrack in the trailers to remember. And as a massive fan of soundtracks and scores, etc., for me not to remember a soundtrack often means it wasn't too good or memorable. Perhaps I was just too focused on the story as opposed to listening to the music, but yeah, I am a massive fan, so I was quite shocked when I came out that I couldn't remember it. But moving on to directing, I was so happy when David Yates signed on to do this because he's done so many of the Harry Potters, so it was quite fluid progressing from Harry Potter to this. I have no qualms, I was more than happy with the directing. Gorgeous. In terms of sets and costumes, again, perfect. I don't know whether or not they filmed in New York, but the fact they were able to create old-fashioned New York from like 100 years ago perfectly was incredible. Visually, I couldn't fault the film. It was perfect. I love the fact that I'm spending more time elaborating on the negatives and critiques as opposed to the positives, but know that I loved it tremendously. Changing topic again, another thing I have loved about this film in particular is that it has shown the Wizarding World across the waters, but unfortunately for me, I was frustrated that it was set in New York, and there is nothing wrong with New York, I love the city, but Hollywood has this obsession with filming and destroying New York in massive battle sequences. This is a list of all the films that have been set in New York in the last 100 years. After a while it starts to get quite repetitive, seeing so many stories in the same location. America as a whole is so vast, there's so many places that this story could have been set. And I know I've read recently that they're going to set the next film in Paris, potentially, but at the same time, New York, it felt like it was just set there to get the American audience in, perhaps. Seriously, you'd be surprised how many films are set in New York, and it sort of goes over everybody's head. But for me, yeah, I'm a bit New Yorked out. Let's explore the world. The world is bigger than New York. Right, I'm starting to get to the end of this, I know, this is a very long vlog. Let's talk about the future of Fantastic Beasts. J.K. Rowling has now announced that there will be 5 films in this franchise, and unlike everyone around me who is ecstatic, I'm not so happy, and I'll explain why. I don't like knowing how long a TV show runs, or how many books are in a series, or how many films are in a franchise, because it sort of spoils it for me. Because regardless of what happens over the course of the stories, you know that the ultimate battle will not be won until the final film, or book, or series episode. When I was a child and reading Harry Potter, we didn't know what the title of the next book would be, let alone how many books would be in the series. So for children now, they know they've got 6 books to read, 4 books to read, 2 books to read. For me, that would spoil it. And also, if there are going to be 5 films and they're going to be spread out over the course of 10 years, I don't want to wait until my mid-30s to find out the ending of this story. I know I'm very impatient. My patience is gone. I think the next Fantastic Beasts won't come out till 2018, and it's been out since 2016, so 2 years, maybe? We shall see, but yes, at the moment I am annoyed that I'm aware of how many films there are. I think I touched on this earlier, but one of my favourite things about Fantastic Beasts is that it can stand alone from Harry Potter. You can love Harry Potter and not get on with Fantastic Beasts, or you can watch Fantastic Beasts and know nothing about Harry Potter, and it still makes sense, and it still be enjoyable. Apart from knowing about Grindelwald if you are a Harry Potter fan. It's rare that a spin-off can sort of hold its own in that way. So in that respect, I tip my hat off to J.K. Rowling and the entire team behind it. There's a few things I haven't mentioned in this video or haven't gone into depth as I probably should. I am truly in awe of the CGI and the costumes and the sets. Sometimes when you have good things to say about something, you don't know how to keep saying something's good, whereas when there's something bad, you can elaborate more. I'm excited to where this franchise goes to next. It's just frustrating, we've got to wait another year, 2 years. I do hope you've enjoyed this review and it's given you some stuff to think about. I've been sitting talking for over an hour and a half, so whatever you are seeing is very condensed. Before I disappear, don't forget to check the links either side of my face, and they're also in the video description. So yeah, I will see you soon.